Hello everyone, we are back at the wet spot with Cameron, of course, and today we're going to be checking out some Badis with a few bonus fish afterwards. But they have some cool species of Badis, and we're going to go learn about them. All right, so the first one we're taking a look at is the spotted Badis. What can you tell us about these?
This fish is great. So we do have, realistically speaking, two species in here, and I'm still getting better at telling them apart. You have Badis Assamensis, the spotted Badis, which are going to be this beautiful red. Largest species described in the genus, if I'm remembering rightly, they can get about 3.5 inches. They're big. And then the other one that you have is Badis Blecerus. Very similar, going to be a little bit more torpedo shaped, still gets the very same red, only gets about 2.5, maybe 3 inches. This is after we've actually cleared out some of the biggest guys in here, if you can believe it. All of these are like the second tier of large. Best way to tell apart those species, again, from what I'm reading, is slant of the mouth. Blecerus are going to be a little bit more torpedo-shaped in the body. Mouth is going to have more of like this downturned hook, almost like a frown to them versus the Badis Assamensis. Care for them both is really unproblematic, other than the fact that they are big lunkers. So versus other Badis, which are of course going to squabble and be tiny little guys, two males you would at least want to have, I'm going to say no, there's a big guy. No smaller than a 20 long, probably. I have kept them in a 20 high, but not super long term. And because they're larger, they're going to be a lot easier to feed than, say, a lot of the Scarlet Btis that most people are going to be familiar with. Mine I have at home. I did pluck through this batch myself a little bit, got some what I think are all Blecerus, are taking flake and pellet. It didn't take them very long to get that, but of course you can still feed them frozen. Going to be cave spawners like a lot of other Badis. Very, very cool fish. And my understanding is that these occur in the same habitat as Scarlet Btis. Could you keep them together? I don't know. I'd be nervous. But
I'd be nervous too.
An enterprising person with a lot of time to watch for separation could try. But beautiful fish. This is the least red that they're realistically going to be. I love them because it's all the Badis personality, but it's big enough that I don't have to bust out the magnifying glass to tell them apart.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I did drop some flake food in here earlier to see, you know, are they going to eat prepared food? And they just gobbled it right up, no problem.
Yep. Yeah, it's more like, I'd say that's probably more the Assamensis type. If I'm wrong, somebody please gotcha me in the comments. Squatter body versus some of these more elongate fellows. But both great fish, and if you're just looking for like onesies or twosies, it doesn't really matter. They're really cool. Mine are alongside some glass catch right now. Really not a mean fish, just big males are going to squabble with each other.
All right, so these guys appear to be being treated, but we're going to look at them anyways. What are these?
So these are going to be Daryl Heisginen, not Heisignen, which is a mistake I made for the better part of a year and a half, I'd say. The Flame Red Badis. So these are going to be little fellows from India, and the reason that they're being treated is not because they're ill per se, it's because we have a bunch of fish in this tank. You can even see a little bit on that fin. When we have a lot of them in here, they'll squabble a little bit, and you'll see those little scabs, so to speak. I've always assumed it's something akin to like lymphocystis, just something that goes away like a lot of other even like Grammies I've noticed, where in the close confines of a sales tank, they're going to do that, and at home, they're really not. These guys are going to stay small, be a lot more akin to like a Scarlet Btis, but get this beautiful red to them. Very unproblematic, again, in terms of care. One bonus is that it's way easier to find females of these.
That's what I was going to ask. Can you get females?
Yeah, I would say big boy right there, probable female right down there. Lovely fish, I would say arguably overshadowed by the Scarlet Btis. Scarlet Btis is a great fish, have some at home. It's just more these guys are a little bit less frequently caught. They have less of that name brand cachet, but great fish and just really, really cool. Really nice little nano fish. Give them a little cave, give them something to spawn in. You can tell by how fat these guys are. Not really going to turn up their nose at much food-wise. Really cool fish. The only thing that I wish I knew more about was why some of them get like those black spots, those little...
I was noticing that earlier.
Yeah, melanistic patches that you'll also see on Scarlet Btis. My presumption has always been damage in shipping, transport, that healed up and just has those dark spots, because it does seem to be a lot more females that will sport that. But awesome fish. Really glad to see these again. It's something that we only have, I would say, a couple months out of the year. So make sure to get them while you can.
Get them now. All right, now I had a hard time deciding on the Assamensis because it was either these or those, but I went with the Assamensis. But these guys are also very sweet and larger. What can you tell us about these?
So I have good news there in that I think that most of these actually might be Badis Assamensis. These came in as Badis ruber, the Burmese red Badis. Problem is, they came from India, which is not Burma. So you're seeing a lot more of this fatter body, kind of that less cylindrical shape. These guys are going to still yet get very red, and if I'm totally missing the plot on these guys and it's one of the more obscure species, I will totally cop to that. There's, I believe, something along the lines of, oh God, I'm going to say like 60 plus species of Badis, with more and more being described every year. So long as you're cool with fish that are really interesting but a little bit more difficult to speciate, get a Badis, because even like the blue Badis groups like Autumnus or Pallidus are all wonderful fish. I've always thought of them as kind of similar in personality to even like a Betta splendens, but with obviously a lot more of an exotic twist. Very, very cool fish, easily kept solo, and a lot of what you'll see with the bigger guys are like what these guys right up front are doing. They just kind of hover a little bit above the substrate or bottom of the tank and just look really nice. And it looks like we're catching these at a little bit of an off time because I've walked by this tank and seen them very, very red with this batch. Beautiful fish. Again, not going to get too large. Maybe, well, if they're Assamensis, they'll get big, but some of these other guys, I would say, probably going to push about 2 inches. Just need to pick through and speciate. But this is the tank that we haven't plucked much out of, because you can see there's enormous fish like that.
Yeah, there's a huge one in there. The blue chameleon fish. What's their story?
Badis, and or whichever of this species complex might be in there, because they're hiding. There's not a ton of them, and they're like 3/4 of an inch long right now. Great fish. Not quite as hulking as some of the larger Badis species like Assamensis. Gonna characteristically have a lot of little stripes, kind of the hash marks down the side. I love these guys. Absolute worst when I've kept them. They're kind of this really nice, like jagged brown, for lack of a better term, like almost like houndstooth, which is really cool. And the reason they're called chameleon fish is males can absolutely turn on and pretty much be electric blue. It really is almost like some cichlids you'll see in terms of the intensity, the dazzling flash that you'll see out of them. Pretty sedate, but still very sturdy. I recently plucked one of these out of my 55 alongside some reasonably big Indian catfish. Truth be told, I kind of forgot the poor little guy was in there, so I made sure to pluck him out, but he was all of 1.5 inches alongside like stinging cats, some Devario, and he was able to just chug along for months, poor little guy. Very, very sturdy. Another one that, again, you can feed them frozen food. It's dandy. If you want to spawn them, it's a good idea. But they can also easily be trained onto prepared foods, in my experience. Give them a cave, get them a pair, see if they'll spawn. But wonderful fish. Still going to have a little bit of squabbling amongst themselves here and there, but still not all that bad. I could easily see keeping a pair or maybe a trio in a 10-gallon, so long as it was well structured. And as I mentioned, this is kind of a species complex. They've, in the past decade, described like seemingly 5 to 10 more guys in this complex that, without knowing location data, are very difficult to tell apart. We unfortunately never get catch location other than wild caught from India. So in terms of looking at these guys and figuring them out is going to be a bit of a journey, but so long as you're okay with a really, really cool fish, it's hard to go wrong with any of these little fellows. Really, really good intermediate for somebody that wants something a little bit easier to see than a Scarlet Btis. Easier to find a female for than a Scarlet Btis, but just not quite as large as, say, like the spotted types. I love Badis. These are Badis SP. Heard it pronounced Buxar, I don't know. It's like a tiger reserve or something. The Royal Rainbow Badis. These are awesome. I have a very similar species at home, Dariolaspiophilus. These guys will get really nice red to them. They're not going to get a ton larger than this. I've kept several different Badis species. Like there's, big Chungus down there. You look great. I love Badis. If you want something a little bit bigger than a Scarlet, if you want something that's like a Betta but not as frustrating in many aspects and a bit more interactive, do a Badis. Badis are great, but these are a great denizen. I have some of these, again, a very similar species alongside some reasonably delicate catfish, and they're doing very well. Tend to get, well, maybe 2 inches, so chunkier than you think, cave spawning, but I love Badis. Badis are great. Started with Scarlets, and I've kind of evolved into keeping just a little bit of whatever catches my interest. If you're not impressed, you see a fish that just didn't have the color, just be patient. They're called chameleon fish for a very good reason, and every time my big male Badis charges out of his cave as a stocky electric blue fish, I'm reminded why he was a good buy.
And of course, we can't make a video about Badis and not include the Scarlet Btis. So give us a quick rundown. I'm sure we're all familiar with it, but a quick refresher.
So with the Scarlet Btis, small fish, males are very commonplace, easy to find. Females are a bit less tricky, and what we do is we definitely try to separate out what we think are suspected females, most of the time successfully, just because it is incredible the lengths at which a subdominant male will seemingly spite us aquarists by appearing as drab as possible. They're doing their jobs to make it so dominant males don't pick at them, but it's also frustrating for folks trying to spawn these fish. Pretty even temperament. These guys have never picked on any fish that wasn't other males in my experience of keeping them. A little reticent to take dried foods. I've had kind of hit or miss with these guys. Some individuals have taken crumbled up flake pretty easily. Some of them have only taken frozen food. I've never found one so stubborn that would only take live though. So patience is a virtue. There is the key. Despite a lot of what I've read, I've been able to keep 2-3 males with plenty of hides in a 10-gallon. Yes, they're a little feisty with each other, but yes, they're also really tiny. And we try our best to get females for the folks that do try to get them. You can even see with this massive spread in terms of fish that you would say, that's probably a female, the numbers are pretty low. I've actually reached out to several exporters located in India where this fish is native to kind of get like a read on why aren't there many females? And I've heard answers all across the board like, oh, they send them all the time to only males are caught because they're out, they're flashy, and females are typically hiding. So the mystery of the female Scarlet Btis and exactly how pretty it may or may not be will remain at least unsolved for now. But it's a great fish. We're fortunate as an aquarium hobby to be able to find them pretty regularly and I would say pretty economically. Most I've ever seen one of these run is like, I don't know, 15 bucks. Wonderful little nano fish and something that you could put alongside, I don't know, even chili rasbors if you were so inclined in a very small tank. Packed with color, packed with personality. I just don't tend to keep them as much because I've done it several times before and there's other Badis stores to be open. But popular for a reason, it's the Scarlet Btis.
Perfect.
All right, so these are one of the best centerpiece nanofish, maybe one of the only centerpiece nanofish I feel like out there, so let's hear about them.
Black Tiger Badis are awesome. They get a bit larger than Scarlet Btis, but still not much. Males are like, I don't know, I wanted to say clowns, but that's rude. Let's say harlequins, because that's a lot better. Really nice striping, really nice color, and if you are one of many people frustrated about the mystery of where are the female Scarlet Btis, what is a female Scarlet Btis, are they all males that just reproduce clonally, get these instead. They're still very peaceful. These are very hardy and easy to take care of, and females abound. You can tell them apart very easy. They're all to the left, and then you have this nice male here in the plants, and when he's feeling it, they are incredible. I love these guys. I really wish that more people would try these out as opposed to the Scarlets, which are a great fish that I own.
No Badis bashing.
But these are awesome. I love these guys. Their only downside is they're a little bit reticent to take like flake food, but if you give them the right size pellets, they'll still typically hunt that down. I've successfully kept them on just dried food.
Yeah, they're a beautiful fish. Definitely check these out, guys.
All right, bonus fish time. We're gonna include a couple Gouramis, still nanded, so you know, it kind of falls in line with them. But I've never seen these before. The giant banded Gourami. What do you know about these?
Oh boy, I hope you're in for spiels because I got plenty. So this is what we're labeling as Trichogaster fasciata. These are wild caught from India, which is neat. Most of the time you'll see these as less colorful tank raised specimens. These are called the giant banded gourami because they do have bands, and for a dwarf gourami, they are a giant reaching at maximum of 4 inches, like this really large one there is getting there. Are they a giant gourami in the true sense? No, these do not get 20 inches long. Are they a food fish? I'm pretty sure they still are actually, yeah. They're kind of like a stretched out big version of a dwarf gourami, beautiful blue and red stripes when they're feeling it, when they're a bit more settled in. They are quite shy. Extremely hardy, extremely easy to keep. These are going to be one of the very cold water tolerant fish should you so desire. Really overlooked, and truthfully I think part of that is the common name is a bit strange. It's a giant gourami. You're going to skip over that. They oftentimes don't show their best color because they are so cowardly, but once they settle in they are exquisite. And for folks frustrated with the roller coaster that can be dwarf gourami health, these guys tend to be really, really well suited for a vast majority of tanks. These were scientifically reclassified to, I believe, Trichogaster Btis. We opted to keep them as fasciata because most people are familiar with that, and because what is now Trichogaster fasciata, if memory serves, is the quote-unquote common dwarf gourami. So it's a whole bunch of fish with new names, or got reassigned names, and it's really, really, really confusing. So
Seems to be a lot of that going on lately.
Yeah. I will still stand the Corridors changes, though. They got the genes for that. But anywho, great fish, very sturdy fish, and coincidentally would work, I would argue, even alongside something as dinky as a Scarlet Btis, and most assuredly alongside some of the bigger Badis. These are really, really nice fish. You just have to take a chance and pretty much let them settle in. But there's no reason you couldn't keep a pair in a 20 or easily a group in a larger tank. Really, really cool. Just takes a little bit of a leap of faith on the part of the keeper, but it's well worth it.
Yeah, these are beautiful, especially in person.
Yep.
So here's another one I've never seen before, the Noble Gourami. These are absolutely stunning. Tell us about these.
Someday I'll keep this fish alive long term. Noble gouramis are difficult. I'll just say out the gate that they're not something for your average hobbyist, and the reason being, and the reason why you might not have seen them, is they tend to ship poorly. They don't always hold up very well, and they come in very skinny. Okay, dandy, that's something that you can feed, and then you run into they hate each other. They really hate each other. I had a pair, for sure male and female, in a 20 long, and boy did they love to fight, which means they'll either not gain weight very well, or if they do have possible parasites or other diseases that came along for the ride, might succumb to those. It's a tricky fish to keep going, especially from our standpoint when we get them in. Some of these guys look fantastic, I will say. Tricky fish. They have a common name of frail gourami for the reason that they like it a bit cooler, they like to fight with each other, but they are incredible. Freakish look, they're like a mutated dwarf gourami almost, with that pike head mouth almost. Really pretty, kind of that camo pattern with a really nice red to them. Have been spawned in captivity, but tricky. Additional quirk of these guys is that Horst Linka's labyrinth fish of the world Bible says that the water, there we go, here's one finally getting some of that freeze-dried bloodworm to eat. Very deliberate. Horst Linka's labyrinth fish book is what I consider in a lot of ways one of the best books for gouramis or anabantids. He lists these as coming from hard water, and every time I've tried that or keeping them in hotter water, they don't tend to do well. So softer, cooler water, giving them plenty of cover and keeping them with tank mates that won't starve them out seems to be the way to go for these guys. I treasure them. Keeping probably a pair is likely the best for most folks. I think if you're wanting to get a group like I've tried in the past, you're going to need a reasonably sized tank and patience and the willingness to put these very slow-moving shy fish in larger confines where you might not see them as readily. But well worth it. Really just bizarre, interesting fish. I love these. I'm really grateful that this batch has been stellar. This is one of the best batches I've ever seen on these guys.
Yeah, they look amazing. This guy, yeah. Wow. All right, there you go. Badis, a couple gouramis, everyone should keep, especially if you're looking for a challenge on those last gouramis we showed you. Any last minute words on Badis?
Please keep something other than scarlets. Take a challenge. They're really good fish. They're mostly indestructible.
All right, also our code Steenfott 10 has been reset. So if you've used it in the past, it is good again. So head on over to head on over to wetspottropicalfish.com, use code Steenfott 10 and save 10%.